All right, welcome everybody. This is your host, Avi Kaushik, and we are just about 54 participants in about 100 or more. So please let everybody know that we have a phenomenal speaker for you this morning. And if you haven't heard me tell Christian's introduction before, our trainer for today is Christion Sadler. Now, growing up, Christion was quite a mischievous young boy. He got into a lot of trouble in school. And, as he grew up, in his teens, he was in quite a bit of financial scarcity. And, he was working at a daily wage job in steel fabrication back then. And he had just heard about real estate and the wealth opportunity that it could provide him. He had started attending different events, different real estate events, different guru events, but really felt like he wasn't going anywhere until he found Renatus. And when he did find Renatus, he started getting around people that he wanted to be like and getting mentored by them, helping out wherever he could. And because of his tenacity, Christion has now been in the real estate business for over 13 years. He's done multiple real estate transactions that have netted over six figures. He is a PIT team member, one of the founding members of Team Elevate, and a marketing leader in the community. So we are very fortunate to have Christion as our trainer here today. So without further delay, I'd like to bring Mr. Christion Sadler on the line. Good morning, Christion. How are you today?
I am great, Abby. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for asking, Christion.
Good. Hey, thanks for being here. Thanks for showing up consistently and running these calls and starting things off. You do an amazing job with it. And I know that I'm grateful, and I know that the whole team is grateful, because without you, these things would not run the way that they do. And, all the calls that I've been on, it seems like they run without a hitch. And that's because you're there early and you're showing up and you're making sure that, internet connection is good and everything else. And so thank you, Abby, for everything that you do. Folks, I wanted to talk about the basics today. So I've learned this over the years that so many people are focused on that next big thing, right? That next exciting way of marketing their business. This big opportunity that's going to bring in all of the prospects that they could possibly want. And what I found is those people who have had the most success weren't focused on the next big thing. They were simply focused on that same thing that works. And I would suggest for you guys to really consider, where you're at and what you're focused on. And there's a saying out there that says, and it was by I believe a Kung Fu master. And the Kung Fu master said, I'm not afraid of the man that knows 1,000 kicks. I'm afraid of the man that's practiced one kick 1,000 times. And what that's all about is you can get very fancy in the way that you're doing things, in the way that you're talking to people, and the way that you are generating leads, and you can come up with new ideas all the time. And quite frankly, if you're sharing that with other people, you can even get other people excited about it and get them behind it. And then, you've got a bunch of unfocused people. And so what I want to do is I want to talk to you guys about narrowing your focus, because there's really only four parts of this business, right? There's four basics when you come down to it. And if you'll focus on those four money-making activities, you will succeed. And here's the interesting thing about it. As I start to talk about, these four money-making activities, some of you're already tuning out. You're saying, I've heard this before, right? And maybe you're not actually tuning out, meaning you're leaving the webinar, but your mind is already saying, oh, I've heard this. I was hoping for something different, right? I was hoping for something more exciting, whatever that is. And I would caution you, if you're always looking for that next best thing, again, you're in a position where you're likely not to get long-term results. And in fact, you may not even get those burst type results that you're getting into. So what I'm saying is, if you find yourself starting to tune out, because we're going to be talking today about finding the people, telling the story, building for events, and following up, there's only one thing that would cause you, to do that, and that is let's call it a lack of understanding. Because, well, what I've found is those people that are leaders, those people that are doing it, they're going to listen because they know what these 4 money-making activities have done in their life, and therefore they're always looking for that one tip or that one reminder that can help them, continue to be better at the basics. And there's another saying out there that says, he who says he knows but doesn't do doesn't know. And so, if you're thinking, well, I know this already, let me ask you, are you doing it? As we go through all of these very basic steps, we're going to go into and dive into the things that you can, should, might be doing that are going to assist you in taking your business to the next level, or quite frankly, getting your business started at all. I talk to people sometimes that it seems like they're on every single phone call. It seems like they are at every single training. And then when I talk to them about what they've got going on in their business, it's not a lot. And I start asking them about their numbers, and they don't know their numbers. And that's the interesting thing about it is, if you are not doing the work, you're not going to get the results. And so I've seen a meme being shared out there, very heavily in the Renatus community right now, that says, don't be upset about the results you didn't get from the work you didn't do. You've got to do the work. So that's what we're here talking about today, doing the work. Let me go ahead and share my screen, and let's dive into this. I'm going to just talk about a few different areas in each of the 4 different money-making activities, and I'm going to do my best to leave a little bit of time at the end where you guys can ask some questions about any of these parts of the business that you might be needing some extra technique on, right? You might need some guidance on hitting it just right. Again, we're not going to talk about how to switch things and, this, new, exciting anything. We're just going to talk about the basics. And then what I want to know is how we can make those small adjustments. So if we go back to, a martial art of some sort, and I think about my little nieces, right? My little nieces are, I believe they're yellow belts right now, but I could be wrong. They're like 3 or 4 belts in each of them. And, with that, when they're practicing that same kick that they learned in their very first lesson, right? They're not told to just do the kick. They do the kick, and then they're guided with just a little bit of adjustment, right? And if you can imagine, starting at 3 years old in karate, their kicks, their form wasn't so great, but they were just learning how to start that process. But as they get older and as they get more in tune with the way that their body moves, and they're able to, stretch a little higher, they're able to put a little more effort into it. It's just small adjustments along the way that is helping them, to move along the path of learning the martial arts. And so getting into that, talking about that, let's talk about finding. Oops. So there's find the people, tell the story, build for events, and follow up. right? So in finding the people, what are you doing? How are you finding the people? Now, we will start with the conversation that many of you have heard over and over and over again, right? Warm market is the highest producing lead source company-wide, industry-wide, as a matter of fact, right? I've done training after training after training where I have groups, I mean, sometimes of hundreds of people, and we'll do a poll. And in that poll, it's how did you find this? Was it somebody that you knew that invited you down here? Did you answer a roadside sign? Did you, call off of a flyer? And warm market always leads the pack, and usually by astounding amounts. I mean, we're talking 70 to 80% of the room many times are there because of warm market. Now, the interesting thing about finding the people is really all you're doing is creating some intrigue, right? You're just sharing a little bit about what you've been learning. And then when they start asking questions, you're going to invite them down to see the information in a way that is already formatted, that is already tested, that is already tried. So just remember when you're talking with your warm market, don't confuse the invitation with the presentation. If you spend too much time sharing and going into detail, they're going to think they already know. And if they think they already know, they have no reason to show up. So the second most productive lead source out there, aside from warm market, is, some people call it 3-foot rule. I call it networking. Now, there's tons of opportunities for networking. Now, you can network anywhere you are. You could be at the grocery store, right? You could be at the dog park with your dog. You could be just about anywhere. You can also, though, specifically target networking opportunities that are social, that are designed to get you and the other people talking and sharing specifically about what you do many times. So you can go to business networking events, you can go to Chamber of Commerce events, you can go to, the many different networking opportunities out there in the world of real estate investor associations. I mean, there's so many opportunities to get out there and network. So I'm going to tie these in because I really look at these as both warm leads. Okay, so I want you to use the ABC, audio business card. Okay, and the audio business card, the formula for it is we've got somebody with their video. All right. Okay. Verb. Well, let's do that. Verb. Okay. Target market. So they can benefit. Invite. So I may have messed up the last part of this. I'm going off of memory. I'm actually going to be teaching this today in the EMT. So, here's the simple thing. So verb. So this is going to be like help. I assist. Whatever it is. Target market. So I help. Target market. It could be millennials, for example. I help millennials. I forgot something that here. Benefit, right? This is another benefit. Put that in there. I help millennials make more money than their parents so they can change the life of their parents. Do you know anybody that would be interested in something of that sort? So I think I messed up the formula a little bit. I can actually pull up the formula for you guys, and it'll look even better than what I'm doing. So again, this is going back to the basics for me, right? If I don't know this off the top of my head, off the inside of my heart, then it's probably a good idea for me to practice teaching it as well. So I cannot find my controls here for clearing this whiteboard. Well, I got an idea. I'll just share my screen. And let's get over here. Sharing my screen. Jumping in here. I'm going to show you guys a little preview of the training. If you guys are in the EMT today here in Utah or online, give you guys a little bit of a preview here. So we're going to go to Drive. I was just making some modifications in here today. Or actually, I guess it was last night. All right, scrolling through. This is the EMT homework, right? Audio business card. Here we are. Back up there. Come on. Load. All right. Okay. I got it right. I, action verb, target marketing, plus benefits, so they can, benefits, and then you're going to move into, do you know anybody? Do you know anybody that would be interested in something like that? So I do have it down, but this is another one of those things where it's like, hey, you need to adjust your foot a little bit. Hey, when you were looking at making that tackle, you forgot to roll your shoulder, right? And so I didn't roll my shoulder with that first set of benefits when I was explaining it to you guys. As I started to say it, then I realized, that adjustment that needed to be made and that part that I left out. So I, action verb, target market, benefits, so they can, benefits, right? So again, I can share with you one more here. I assist professional athletes to learn about the money game so they can win even when they're done playing the game long term, or playing sports long term, right? So just something simple, and if you can tailor it to that target market, the person that you're talking to, then that is ideal, right? So you could actually use this, and you could modify it for every single person that you talk to if you want, right? Or you choose your target market and you go out there and you make it specific to them. So let me get over here. We're going to go back to the whiteboard. And here we are. Here's my controls that weren't there before. So warm market, networking, and I think the next two are going to be road signs and or flyers. So if you look at how people have been introduced to the business, actually, you know what's above flyers? Right here in the middle, this is internet ads. So we're going to talk about internet. These are kind of the top ways that people have found the business, right? Meaning that somebody else was able to go find the people. And so over the next 4 weeks, what we're going to be talking about starting this week is find the people, tell the story, build for events, and follow up. So today we're focused on finding. And with the warm market, you get the opportunity to use your audio business card, right? Now, another script you can use when you're talking to your warm market is I just learned. I just learned. So you call somebody up and you say, let's say ring, ring. They say, hello. You say, hey, Uncle Joe, this is Christian. It's been a little while. How are you? Uncle Joe says, I'm great, Christian. What's going on? And I say, well, Uncle Joe, I wanted to give you a call because I've recently started to network with this group of entrepreneurs and real estate investors. I know that you've been interested in that in the past, right? And I just learned how I could pay off a 30-year mortgage in a quarter of the time without changing my lifestyle dramatically. And at the same time, I can be acquiring a real estate portfolio. Have you ever considered what it would be like to, pay off your debt quickly and own more rental properties? Well, of course I have, Christian. You know that I used to own a car wash. You know that that we just bought our house 3 years ago, and it took us some time to be able to build up the ability to do that. Of course I would be interested. But what is this strategy all about? What are you talking about? Well, there's actually a lot to it. Some of it has to do with, using simple interest versus amortized interest. And it can actually be done with something, believe it or not, as simple as a credit card. I don't have a ton of time to explain it to you right now, but Uncle Joe, I'm actually going to another workshop this Thursday, and they're going to be sharing in detail about this strategy. So I've already got, Aunt Sally coming, and I was just wondering, I could get you a guest pass. Would you be willing to tag along? Well, of course I would be willing to tag along. What time is it at? It's at 7 o'clock over at the Salt Lake Community College. Okay, perfect. Uncle Joe, do you want to just meet there, or should we ride together? Well, are you coming by my house? No, it would be a bit out of the way, but I'm willing to come get you. Don't worry about it, Christian. I'll be there, right? It can be a simple conversation as that. And so warm market networking, those are some of the ways that you're doing it. Now, with road signs, with internet ads, with flyers, what are some of the messages that are working? So I'll share with you the message that I'm putting on my roadside signs, which, by the way, I live in a state where Renatus does not want us putting out roadside signs. But this has been something that has been a staple in my business, right? It's been a way that I've built my business for a lot of years. So instead of saying, well, I can't do it, I'm going to go find that next best thing. Instead, I started training other people to do it in places where I could put up roadside signs. And so as a pit team member, I'm oftentimes invited to go speak in different locations. And it used to be that, you know what, guys, I would just go wherever I could fit into my schedule, whatever made sense. I would go everywhere. And in the beginning, I admit a lot of that was because I was, I was looking to bring as much value as possible. I was looking to build relationships all across the country because that was part of my ideas. Part of my focus was, I wanted the ability to build into many different markets. And what I realized over time was many times I was sacrificing my own business to go show up and teach and train other people. And that was only because I was spending time on those things without doing all the basics myself, especially in those new markets. And so I would, last minute I would be putting out an internet ad and I would be calling people and I'd be, inviting them down, but I wasn't consistently building into the marketplaces where I was going. And it got to the point where, quite frankly, I was overloaded with the amount of travel that I was doing. And so I wasn't even sometimes having guests at these locations across the country where I was showing up and doing training. And so I set some guidelines for myself, right? I made some adjustments. And I decided that I'm only going to travel in a way where it either already fits into what I'm doing with my normal life or it is profitable for me, right? And I can tangibly see the profit before I show up. So the way this, one of the ways that this started was Seattle, actually. So there was two Seattle teams at the time that they were kind of growing together, and there was Tacoma, and then there was Seattle up that's further north, and they wanted me to come train. And so the Tacoma team said, I'll tell you what we'll do. We will put out roadsides for you over the next 3 months. We'll start putting out signs right now, and we can start building for you coming out here. And so if we put out those roadside signs, would you be willing to come up? And I said that makes a lot of sense. And if I can get some people building in that marketplace, then it makes sense for me to come up there. It's going to be profitable for me. And then the Seattle team said, hey, we want in on this. We want you here as well. And you know what? If you'll come train our team, we'll actually cover the cost of you flying up there and your room and board. And so I said, great. This is a win-win. So for 3 months, I had roadsides put out for me. I was making phone calls. I was having one of my IMAs make phone calls. We were building into that market. And when we got there, we were able to enroll a couple of combos. And by getting a couple of people on my team, well, I guess one was an Extreme Plus combo, one was an Advanced combo. As we started getting people on my team, then what we did is we actually started having those people that were on my team do the roadside signs for me. So I pay for the signs, they put them out, I split the leads with them, and we go through the process that way. And so with things like roadside signs, my message right now says this: flip homes with me, big profit potential. And then my phone number. So I actually get a Google Voice number that is a Seattle or close to wherever I'm going area code. So for example, if it was, let's just say Utah, then it would be at 801-899 9981. That's not my real number. It's one that I just made up, right? And so this goes on a roadside sign. And you design it in a way where it's very legible, right? And so flip homes is really big. It's stretched across the whole thing. With me is, also stretched across. And then the big profit potential, it's going to be smaller letters, but it's still going to be very legible. And then I actually make my numbers the biggest portion, right? And a lot of times what I'll do is I'll actually invert this to where instead this is all filled in, right, with a color, and then it's white numbers that are in there. So that's just a simple roadside sign that I use. Now with flyers, here's what I really like about flyers, and this will be kind of the last tip that I give you guys before jumping off here to jump on the Patim webinar is, with flyers, I really like the fact that I can use both sides, right? I can use both sides of the flyer. I can have one side that is marketing for properties, right? And I can have one side that is marketing for prospects. So I'm gonna erase this right here. Let's just that's fine. Let's go ahead and erase all of this right here, and I'll give you kind of the idea of what I'm talking about here. All right, so with flyers, what I'll do is I'll have two sides, right? One side here, one side here. And this side is going to be something like, I buy houses. Right? And then a phone number. 1. Right? And then the other side is going to be something like learn to invest in real estate. Right? And then 801, 888, 8888. And so typically when I'm doing flyers, I'll have, a stack with me or, whatever it is, and I can drop them off as I'm going into the grocery store, as I'm coming out of the grocery store, as I'm, doing different things. But then the other thing I'll do is I'll take this flyer, right, and I'll put it into a little baggie. And then the flyer is in there, and then I fill this with sand, right? You want to use silica sand because silica sand does not get wet. So if you fill it up about, quarter of the way through full, not even a quarter of the way full, just enough that it's got some weight to it. And you take this plastic bag and you fill up, 100 of these, 1,000 of these, however many that you can, get to. And when you've got a few hundred of them, because that's usually what we do when we go out in a night, is we'll fill up a few hundred. Then you drive down the road. One person driving, they're focused on driving. Please don't have that person focused on anything else but driving. You want to be safe about this. But then you've got a passenger, sometimes a couple of them, right? One in the back on the driver's side, one on the passenger side. And then what you're doing is you're just pitching these out into people's driveways. So this is a quick way to disperse a whole bunch of flyers. And what's going to happen when somebody wakes up and they go outside and they decide that they're going to, go to work, they notice something in their driveway. And people usually are like, what in the world is this? So they pick it up, and before they throw it away, they notice words on their flyer, and they read it. And some of them are going to call. Some of them are going to throw them away. And some of them are actually going to take that flyer out of there. They're going to be interested, and they're going to set it aside. And then they're going to call 3 months later or a week later. Or, it may bounce around and it may end up in somebody else's hand and somebody else calls. So the key is just getting those flyers out there. Okay, I'm going to open up. We only have about 2 minutes left that I can stay on the call. What questions do we have? Eloy, good work. I equip entrepreneurs with the tools and resources necessary to become financially free through real estate investing so they can spend more time on money on things they want. That wouldn't interest you, would it? Good work. I love it. You're ABC. Just connection others are having. It's just your connection, I believe, Levi. I hear you very well. Okay. Very helpful content today. I've been feeling stuck when it comes to inviting people to events. Thank you for your time and knowledge. All right. So any last questions? I've got time for one question.
Yes, I have a question in reference the bags that you were throwing out. What did you include in the bag other than the sign itself, the flyer? And
okay, so it's good.
Yes, this is Ron. Sorry. Good morning.
Oh, good morning. What was the last part of that question?
I wanted to know exactly what you put in the plastic bags that provided the weight when you throw them out in the driveways with the flyers.
Yeah, perfect. So you're actually going to go down to Home Depot is where we're usually going, but just about any hardware store will have it. And you're going to get the silica sand. So it's a sand that doesn't hold moisture. And you'll just get a little scoop. You'll figure out over time, based on your baggie, you'll figure out what size you need, and then you'll want to, how much sand you need, and then over time you'll get a scoop that's just perfect, and you just pour that sand in there and give it enough weight that it'll fly, and you're good to go. So we call them sand flyers. My mentors, the people that originally taught me this, said they used to use rocks. But what they found is when they were throwing them, then sometimes they would hit a window, and that wasn't good. And other times people would, be using a snowblower the next day because we're in Utah, right? And all of a sudden then they'd get these things sucked up in their snowblower with rocks in them, and that wasn't any good either. And so what they found is sand is just a safer option to throw these out there.
Hey, Christian?
Yes.
I was thinking rock salt might be better because it melts if the bag breaks open. The first time they spray down the driveway, the rock salt melts. sand don't melt.
Yeah, I would stick with sand personally. Salt can be corrosive and might ruin your flyer. And so sand, that thing could stay there for months and be just fine. But you guys are welcome to try whatever you think makes most sense. Anyways,
Thanks.
folks,
That was a good idea.
that's end of the call for today. Appreciate you guys being on here. So we're going to continue to talk about the basics moving forward. So you guys can probably guess. We talked about finding the people today. And next time I'm on the call with you next week, we're going to talk about telling the story. So we're going to go into some scripts and some conversations. Appreciate you guys being on here, and I will talk with you soon.